listening to Achtung Millwall, broadcasting from the beautiful South Birmingham. Accept no substitute.
Hello, dear listeners. Welcome to Achtung Millwall, number 416. My name is Nick Hart, and we are gathered on the internet in the aftermath of a really strong away win last night for the Lions at Sheffield United. The starting 11 for Millwall, similar, but one or two strategic changes from the debacle on Saturday. In goal last night, Bart Bielkowski across the back line, Sean Hutchinson, Dan Ballard and Jake Cooper. On the wings, the wing backs, left side, Scott Malone, peroxide blonde, Scott Malone, and on the other side, Mr. Reliable, Ryan Leonard. Reliable Ryan. The midfield seems to be Gary Rowett's preferred double-headed midfield. That's the two Georges, George Saville and George Evans these days. Up front, a player that I like, Shea Ojo. In the middle, the returning Tom Bradshaw in place of Benik Afobe, who sat on the bench last night. And then the man himself, Superman, Mr. Jed Wallace, in his roving role on the right side of the attack. We go from a debacle to one of the best away displays seen for some time by a Lions side, such as the lot of the Millwall fan, dear listeners. It was a really enjoyable game last night. Scoring opened on 10 minutes with that wonderful cross, or was it a shot from the right side by Jed Wallace that seemed to, mutate from one into the other and drift into the net over the head of the Sheffield United goalkeeper, putting us one up. After that, Sheffield United slowly, for me, started to take control of the first half, including a really decent save on 27 minutes by Bart Bielkowski. As the half wore along, I thought, increasing the pressure was turning on, the screws were turning, and in the end, we did indeed concede that penalty on 42. Scott Malone clipping, I think it was Billy Sharp on the right side of the penalty area, allowing him to convert the penalty for 1-1 at half-time. I must admit, I felt a sense of real injustice, which is a tribute to the Mill performance at half-time as we, left the pitch. But I did fear, I don't know about you, dear listener, I did fear a long second half in front of us. And so it started. There were chances, really early for Sheffield United. But a game turned with a decisive, as it would finish to be, sending off on the 53rd minute. Gibbs White for the Blades, taking a Swan Lake-style dive, worthy of Rudolf Nureyev in his pomp on 53. And the referee did well to actually spot it and hand out a second yellow card, which led to Sheffield United going down to 10 men. Now, as my notes normally record it, I asked a question, can we exploit that 10-man situation? We normally struggle, don't we? For reasons that are too deep to go into on this show, we seem to struggle against 10 men. But in fairness, Mill did take control of the game, and we started to look dangerous exploiting that extra man. But it has to be said that Sheffield United equally some decent players on their side, and they changed tactics and they looked to hit us on the counter-attack. And the game really could have gone either way through the whole of the second half. There were chances for both sides up until that decisive, wonderful strike deep in injury time, 90+2. When the ball fell to Rocket Jake Cooper on the edge of the D, his shot being slammed home with authority into the net, causing ecstasy, certainly in my house, probably in your house too, certainly on the away travelling, the plucky 500. Well done to them for travelling so far north for that midweek fixture. You've seen the pictures, the Superman thing that Jed did in the first half, and then the collaborative celebration of players and fans after the second one went in the net. This is what Millwall's all about. If we're going to succeed in this division, dear listeners, it's that sense that fans and players and management come together, because individually, as we saw last Saturday, separate we fall, united we stand, so to speak. So in the end, an excellent 2-1 win for the Lions on the road at Bramall Lane. Coming up after these messages, I'm going to be speaking to Mr. Michael Avery to chew the cud of last night's excellent away win that leaves us in 10th position in the table, just 3 points off the playoffs. We'll be back shortly.
Hello, Nick. It's Barry Mooney. I've been thinking about all weekend, not watching that Saturday, which was very disappointing. I know you had a few people on about it, but what I can't understand is why we don't attack more, and that's what's getting to us. And I don't know what he's done with George Saville. Everyone started where I sit in the Dockers now. They're starting to turn on George Saville. I don't think it's his fault. I think what's happened, he's playing George Saville in a more of a defensive role. And when he played for us before, he was getting forward he was getting into the box behind the strikers. So I don't understand what Gary Wright's doing there. And as for young Cooper at the back, I don't know what's happened to the lad at the moment. He's just really seems to be struggling at the moment, whether he's trying too hard now to get it right. And as I say, overall, our attacking, the boy from Liverpool does look good, but he tends to, I think, try and do too much. But it's only one defeat. The next two games are going to be very important. But I think if we do lose both, then I think he could be in a bit of trouble. You know, I do like the man, but looking at some of the football we're playing, they're not creating chances. It does get a bit frustrating, as you know. Anyway, I thought that's my pen of Nick. All the best, mate.
What do Jake Cooper and Ron Jeremy have in common? They love a screamer.
Hello, Nick. The bomb here. I'm 4 vodkas in now, doubles and all. I told you, didn't I? We are going up. Say we are going up. There's only one guy right, mate.
Achtung, Millwall.
So there we are, dear listeners, from the ridiculous to the sublime, so to speak. 3 voicemail messages. Big thank you to everyone that left us voicemails. First one recorded in the immediate aftermath of Saturday's debacle at home to Luton. And then the second 2 in the aftermath of last night's excellent away win at Bramall Lane. What's it like being a Millwall fan, eh? Joining me to kick over the traces of such philosophical questions, Michael Avery. Welcome to the show, Michael.
Good afternoon, Nick. Thank you for having me. Good to be back on the show. I've not been on for a while, so it's nice to have a nice catch up with listeners.
We may be joined by Harry Warren at some stage.
I'm sure you're delighted to hear from me, listeners, aren't you?
We may be joined by Harry later, but we'll see. In the meantime, we're speaking with Michael. Michael, we were just saying off air how enjoyable a game it was as a game of football last night. I felt it was a real, it was a battle. We brought our battling game, the Millwall game, and just as a spectacle, as a you know, if you can put your loyalties to one side, I actually thought it was a good game of football last night.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I've asked you to come on the show today, Nick, or I've asked to come on, because normally for the listeners who aren't aware, we've got like a little rota for the guests who come on, because there's quite a few of us now, and too many voices spoil the broth. But the reason I thought I'd like to come on is because, with all due respect to Harry, he wasn't the most positive, was he, Nick, last night at times during our little chat, and I was trying to sort of work out why he didn't think last night was a good game. He commented on the 10 men and the fact that, you know, we were struggling to break down the 10 men, which again is his opinion. He's totally entitled to it. But I've always said as well, sometimes 10 men are harder to play against than 11. And yes, there may not have been as many clear-cut chances, or, you know, neither goalkeeper had to make 20, 30, 40 world-class saves. But as you say, it was really good end-to-end football. There was a lot of good tackles coming from Millwall. And that is the classic Millwall away day performance. You play well away from home. You could argue statistically a little bit of a smash and grab, but I didn't think it was that game at all, did you?
I thought last night's was everything as a performance. It was everything that we didn't see on Saturday, and it was a strange thing. Just before I logged on to I took the iFollow feed because the red button I always find to be a fuzzy out of focus. It's a bit like when I do my eye test, listeners, and I can't see half the letters on the letterboard. So I always watch iFollow where I can, just HD better imagery. But just before I logged on to that, getting to the point, there was a thing on the official site where I can't remember how many games prior to getting beat by Luton on Saturday we'd gone, but I think it was about 7 unbeaten in the league. And it just took me back because from my own perspective, Saturday's performance was awful. There's no hiding from that. And a lot of the football that we'd seen in the season had been kind of draws and kind of edgy wins. I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but it certainly hasn't been for some time. We haven't had a sense of Millwall fire in the belly and the kind of buccaneering approach. I think I called it on Saturday. When was the last time we'd seen a buccaneering win by Millwall? Well, last night was a buccaneering win by Millwall, albeit, and I think possibly this is the nub of the problem, because I think there still is a bit of a problem. It was Rowett football played in the right way, at the right location, and with the right spirit. The players delivered for him last night, Michael. Whereas at home at the Den, the defensive, the suffocation of the game, and then the hit on the break, it isn't something you can do at the Den as often as has been done for some time under Gary Rowett. Last night's was a welcome shot in the arm for him, I think, last night's win, because it takes the pressure off him. But we still have to solve this problem of the Den, Michael. I mean, I think last night's was a booster, and I enjoyed it, and, some good performances, which we'll come on to. But we still have to tackle this issue of taking the game to opposition at the Den and winning them, because that's still a little bit up in the air for me, even despite last night. How do you see it?
I think to a point that Millwall fans, and without trying to alienate or lose listeners or anything like that, I think there's an element where we need to realign expectations. And that's not just from, the fellow who sits in block 3 screaming and shouting, or the bloke in the south stand who gets a bit lively. I'm talking about all Millwall fans. Now, Gary Rowett obviously has a style of football. Whether you like it or not, it gets results. You will not get relegated under a Gary Rowett team. The fact that we have been playing so perceivably poor from our ability on the field, but we are 10th. Okay? The expectations.
Yeah.
But also as well, I remember a few years back on another podcast, not one that we're involved with, Steve Morrison was on the podcast, and they said a similar question when he was playing under Neil Harris. They said, why, at home do we seem to struggle compared to away? And Steve Morrison, this was when he was in League One and doing well, he was saying, we play a style of football which invites pressure and we hit on the counter, or it's a defensive style, and then we catch them on the back foot. Now, the reason why I say Millwall fans needs to realign their expectation isn't because if Steve Morrison was saying this in seasons when we got promoted and was playing under Neil Harris, this isn't a new thing. This is a way we've been playing now for 3, 4, 5 years. We've just had different managers. Perhaps with Rowett, it might seem a little bit more, speech marks, boring or sort of beige because it's more organised. Neil Harris, as we've always said, Nick, and you've said on the show, was like a cup final way of playing football.
Yeah,
You've got the results, hit teams on counter-attacks. It was that kind of little bit gung-ho when we was attacking, whereas Rowett's is a little bit more steady and defensive-minded. Millwall have played a way of football now where, yes, it might not be pretty, but it gets results. It grinds out results when you need them. I think when you realign your expectation that is the type of team we are, and this is the type of manager we have, would we be more accepting of the results of the performances of the way certain teams are playing and the way certain teams are managing? We said a while back, and I said it on the show, Gary Rowett is a modern manager. We are a modern club, modern tactics in a modern game. Is there an element where some of the fans might be that still a little bit too 4-4, too old-fashioned? Possibly. I don't mean to pigeonhole, but it could be that, Nick. It could be that we're not used to boring 1-0s or 0-0s at home.
I will pigeonhole us all. I think that we probably are all in the blood, rightly or wrongly. I mean, I think that the idea of Mill being an old-fashioned club is a very real one. We're an old-fashioned support in a world that is changing, and this wider point than just the football that we've been seeing recently. I take that point because I think what Gary Rowett is trying to do with a squad. How can I put it? It's not of limited value, but I mean, I was just watching Sheffield United play last night, Michael, and even after going down to 10 men, because of the quality of players that they are able to afford, they're not so highly placed in the table as to be out of sight. But one thing that really struck me is when they went down to 10 men, like the very best teams can do really well, they still looked as dangerous. They adjusted their tactics to suit that situation. and they got forward, and there was a few moments of danger. I mean, up until obviously the 90th minute, the game was in the balance. You know, it was very much we were hitting them, we were looking better, which I was pleased to see. Against 10 men, we've traditionally struggled, possibly for the same reason that our players are invariably, with one or two exceptions, playing slightly above their level. You know, and I don't mean to be cruel or disrespectful in that. It's just that often our players are journeymen with one or two glittering moments. I mean, Jed is our obvious star at the moment, Superman, as I called him on our newsletter that we sent out today. Now, I think that Sheffield United, with their level of players, Billy Sharp, others that have come, I can't think of as I'm speaking, valuable players signed for bigger money than we can bring to the table. They're not long out of the Premier League. We can't compete with that. And I think Gary Rowett's tactics, as much as it is a grind and has been a grind, I don't think we can escape that. Has been a grind. I think that's what induced Saturday. You know, the torrent, you would have heard it. Everyone there would have heard it. He would have heard it. Fairly or unfairly, I just think that's a fact of life. Where does it take us? Very hard to change people's minds. if you are a dyed in the wool, old school den, supporter like me, like many others, like everyone listening to the show, possibly. It's quite hard to shake that, but I do think that the essence of it, what really separated last night's showing from Saturday, Michael, was the amount the players looked like they gave a shit. The effort they brought it last night, and they didn't bring it Saturday. That's going to be the key for that disparity in resources going forwards.
Yeah, and I think as well, even if you look at players like Bradshaw last night, I've with all due respect, I like Tom Bradshaw as a player on his day. I do think he has ability and he can finish. There's obviously something where it's not ticked for him recently over the last 6 to 12 months.
Yeah.
But even he was like running around trying to make an effort. He was trying to get into the right spaces. Malone was unfortunate to give away the penalty. It was a clumsy tackle that gave away the penalty. But you could see the frustration in himself amongst his teammates when he gave away the penalty, the way he was throwing his arms around and everything like that. So he cared. Har, again, was excellent. Cooper, I'm not going to jump on a bandwagon and say that he is like reborn like Lazarus and come back to what he was, but he looked certainly he looked a lot better. Saville got a lot more stuck in with tackles, and Matt Smith, when he did well. What you were saying there about the players that we have, the resources we have, the money we have. I mentioned this to someone recently. Right at the beginning of the August transfer window, Gary Rowett signed Ballard, Afobe, Saville, and Long, wasn't it? 4 players.
Yeah, over the summer. Yeah, that's right.
So that started off like that. I may miss 1 or 2 out. But I remember it got to a point where he said, if I want to add to this squad, I have to get rid of certain players. Players who have been in too long past their sell-by date. Now, with all due respect, I know that he's become a little bit of a laughing stock and I don't mean to be horrible, but John Daddy Budvarsson, when you are practically driving him down to League One clubs and go, please take him, and they won't take him, and the wages he must be on, what can you do if you're trying to buy a player? And like you say, with your resources, if you've got a centre forward who scored 20 goals in the Championship, good luck us ever being able to afford a player like that, because it's not going to happen. So one of my devil's advocate things with Rowett is has he got the best team sort of that he wants at the moment? He's playing a sort of 5-2-3 or a 5-3-2 with players who can only play 4-4-2. Yes, I know he's had a lot of time to mould the team how he wants to and buy players that he wants to. But again, if two out of 3 or 4 of your best players are loanees in Ballard and Afobe, what can you do long term? Because we certainly can't keep these players unless Afobe possibly has some kind of pay cut at the end of the season.
Yeah, there's a famous phrase that went through my head there. Was it the economics idea that in the long term we're all dead, so you'll never live in the short term. That's all you've ever got, really. I take that.
Well, that's uplifting.
No, I take that point, but I mean, you know, a manager can only really plan for the season in which he's in. There's a thing in football, people planning for the long term and even the medium term, which could all twist and turn on one moment or a couple of moments in a game of football. And people get moved on or sacked. We're just looking at on a different level today. Newcastle have sacked the most predictable sacking in the lot, Steve Bruce. Bruce is a decent manager, and there are many, many reasons as to why he's not maybe succeeded to the level that Newcastle fans have expected. And the same goes every club. I think Gary Rowett has a style, and fair play to him. I mean, he's under a lot of pressure to change things, which he may or may not do going forward. I think the thing is that at the Den, the likes of you and I and all the other fans that turn up there fortnightly, we're going there primarily for entertainment and the community side of the club, the catching up with pals and whatever. And hopefully you see a blood and guts display. Now, blood and guts isn't always the solution to every single game, but it's a thing in the Millwall kind of DNA that's anything less than blood and guts, and you're being shortchanged. And I think that's why Saturday reached the point that it did, because COVID and the lockdown has kind of denied us the regularity of comment on the situation. So it's been a long build up to finally one poor showing, and it is what I think it will be, one poor showing, because I think that may have been a wake-up call for the players as well. In the end, I mean, I'm a bit of a skeptic on tactics, because I think you can read a lot into which system a manager's playing. If in the end, if the players don't bring maximum effort or as much effort required to defeat the opposition, then it doesn't matter whether it's 4-4-2 or whatever you like. You're not gonna win the day. And I think that was what we saw against Luton. It was players. Everyone's booing Gary Rowett and calling him all the names under the sun, but it's the players that were failing to deliver for him. And that's the essence of football management, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I thought last night was a marked contrast. Now, for whatever reason, whatever rockets have been fired off in the dressing room, I don't know. I mean, clearly Danny Mack wasn't featured in the squad, which is a bold decision by Gary Rowett. He's been one of our more promising players for some time. He's the man that took Marlon Romeo's place. Ryan Leonard started last night, and as you've said already, Tom Bradshaw up front. And Bradshaw is a very willing, but he's not. I think he's at a higher level than maybe might expect to be with us. But he gives you 100%, and I think that's what the difference was last night. We got 100% from every single player. I didn't see anyone hiding last night, and that shouldn't be refreshing, but what was refreshing from Saturday.
Yeah, and it was, and you had, like you said, you had certain players who was not there. You had some players who was out injured, and they all seemed to really put in a shift. I thought it was Leonard at fullback, wasn't it? Instead of McNamara last night.
Yeah, he was in that right wing back position, wasn't he? And Malone returned, which was good to see, because I like Scott Malone. Otherwise, I mean, Bradshaw came in up front. Otherwise, it was largely the same group of players. But for reasons beyond our understanding, last night we played and we put everything into the system that Rowett set out. And I think sometimes you can overplay this tactical thing. If you don't put 100% in, it won't matter what formation you're playing. We didn't see 100% Saturday, but we did last night. Major difference.
Yeah, and it's frustrating is the wrong word, but it makes you think now what we would be capable of if we put in that sort of level of performance every week. Because Luton, yes, the wheels fell off drastically, but I think this has kind of been building since the Fulham game, really. Fulham was different in the sense that they absolutely ripped us apart because they were that good. But the following game after that, I believe it was Blackburn, wasn't it? Or around that time, it was around that time was the Blackburn game, and that wasn't great.
Yeah.
Blackpool, wasn't it? A last-minute goal again, barely scraped a 2-1 win. Bristol City were absolutely there for the taking, and we only beat them 1-0. So, as you say, maybe sort of follow on from the Luton game, last night could be the catalyst to actually build something. I'm not saying we go on some miraculous run, but those draws should start turning to wins a bit more now. And I even thought Matt Smith, when he came on the field, he had that header late on in the game that he really had no right to win.
Yeah.
But somehow he managed to twist his body and smash it, and it nearly went into the top corner. So even the players who were coming off the bench, seemed like they want it, or certain players are still. The squad depth is still obviously an issue because, Aaron's pointed out before, and again, you've got players on the bench there who arguably would they be able to do a job if they come in onto the field or if someone got injured. But there's nothing we can do about that at the moment. We've got another sort of, you don't want to count down the transfer windows already, but you've got 10 weeks until the window opens again. But how do you question Ojo? How do you think he played last night? Because I see a lot of things saying that, hoik him off, get him off, he's useless, he's in the wrong position. But I think for me personally, it's similar to what Mike Hayden said, when we first signed him.
Yeah.
He came in as a winger, but we've not really played him as that out-and-out winger, have we, since he's come in, or played him as a winger on that consistent basis?
No, I mean he was kind of playing as Jed Wallace's opposite number on the Jed's more of a right side, isn't he? Well, they both go wandering, so they can both mix and match right and left. I really like Shea Ojo, but then I read the same stuff that you do. And I find it quite hard to understand how people can say he's useless. He's most definitely not useless. He's got a real touch and quality about him. There may be good reasons why he's playing for Millwall at Bramall Lane and not Liverpool in the Champions League. And yeah, I mean, that's football. I mean, I think that from our point of view, from our level, I mean, I think he's one of the better players I've seen for a good while at the Den. In terms of technical ability, I don't know enough about the boy to know, any other aspects of his game. But from what I've seen, he's got good quality. He came out last night, didn't he? Was it Afobe he was substituted for in the second half? I like him. I mean, football's a game of opinions, as the cliche has it. I can't see how anyone can say he's useless. I think he can have more effective moments than others, but that's in the nature of the kind of the wing-based attacker. I mean, they're always mercurial characters. I mean, I thought last night, I mean, Bart, we just take Bart for granted. And, we were saying good defensive performance. There were some really strong saves made by Bart, goal-saving saves, which on another day, maybe they would have gone in the net. But, I think, again, he's clearly not... he has flaws to his. He's not the rounded package, but there are flaws to his game. I keep reading about people critiquing his kicking, Michael, but maybe people saying other goalkeeper, Jules Long might come in and make a better job of it. But some of those saves that he made last night were behind the reason that we won the game. So I don't get that. I sometimes, I mean, the expectation of football fans is always boundless, isn't it? And the resources of the club are not boundless, so there's going to be a tension between the two. I thought defensively we looked quite good last night. I thought it was quite a good show defensively. And I come back to the point that we made earlier on. I actually enjoyed it as a game of football. And I think that, in a nutshell, that's why you watch the game. That's why you follow football. You want to actually come out after a game, for the most part. You won't always get it, but you want to come out buzzing with some of the things and the spectacle that you've just seen. And maybe that's the bit that if Gary Rowett can connect with that, get that going more often, he's got a big chance on Saturday at home to Stoke, then that's going to be the way forwards. But you're right, I can't argue with the league position, which is pretty good by Millwall historic standards.
Yeah. Firstly, without trying to be too dramatic and over the top, anyone who's critiqued Bart, hang your head in shame. Because
you see it online, though. I mean,
I know.
You can't take it too seriously, but you do see it, don't you?
No, I jest. But no, you're right. And I think the problem is that you say, and we've said it before, he does get taken for granted. We expect him to pull these saves off every single week. I think that Jed Wallace is the absolute runaway already.
Superman.
Yeah, Superman for player of the season. already, and we're only 3 months into the season. But again, I think if you took Jed out of this side, God forbid he don't go in January, but if you took him out of this squad, but arguably would be one of the player of seasons again for a third consecutive season.
Yeah.
Kicking aside, he's the real deal. He's the real package, and we've absolutely fell on our feet getting a goalkeeper like that, because he's superb in my opinion.
Better game from George Evans, Michael, I thought as well. I mean, he was another player that, I think we described him as wishy-washy or beige or magnolia or all those kinds of words. But I thought he did okay last night, George Evans in midfield. I thought he was more in, and George Saville, actually, the two Georges, both looked on it last night in a way they didn't on Saturday.
Yeah, I think the critique of George Evans is unfair, if I'm totally honest. I really, really do. I mean, I am
unfair.
I know we've mentioned it amongst ourselves, and apologies, but it's the den, exactly, yeah. But I think it's unfair because we know his limitations. He's very much in that. Do you know who he compares me to? Not positionally, but the way he is. He's very much that sort of Jack Smith role. In the sense that you just look, Jack, just sit there, do what I'm going to tell you to do, and don't do anything else. That's what you get from him. There was a game, I can't remember, I think it might have been QPR first game of the season when we made a late sub and it was him, and you sort of heard a universal groan around the stand. But I don't think that was a groan at Evans personally. It's the fact that that Rowett's not bringing on a player to change a game, because Evans can't do that. No. But you think, and this is again where sometimes the expectation of Millwall fans does surprise me. I mean, I'm not some oracle of Millwall knowledge. Anyone who listens to this probably thinks I'm a complete idiot sometimes as well. I like to think there ain't many of them, but there might be some that completely disagree with me. But George Evans last season, considering how bad we were playing last season at points, when George Evans come in, how many people were going, well, he's stabled up in the midfield, or he looks steady on the ball, he looks okay. I know he had that bit of a mare at centre half, but I can't remember who it was against that. But he's
more of a midfielder than a defender.
Yeah,
I will give
he didn't have a particularly good game last season at the back, but I can't really. He's not pulled up any trees. Don't get me wrong, but I wouldn't say he's been playing poorly this season at all. Give him a break. Justice for Evans.
The Saville and Evans midfield seems to be Gary Rowett's preferred two, certainly at the moment. I mean, Keithton Belt seems to have faded from favour. Billy Mitchell, I don't know when we'll ever see Billy Mitchell at the moment, because he seems to have faded out of
That's another weird one, isn't it?
Very, I won't flog the Conor Mahoney, what became of him, but he's disappeared somewhere. And obviously, last night, as it turned out it turned out well for us, but Danny Mack not even on the bench. So, and I haven't read anything about that. I mean, I may have missed it, listeners. I'm not that studious that I follow every single comment on the side, but for Danny Mack not to even be in the squad is surprising. I think probably the best way we can put it. Alex Pearce sits on the bench. I think they must have like a sponsored spot on the bench or something. So he never seems to feature other than more desperate situations, So I think it sounds churlish in the aftermath of a really good win. I mean, there's some really good moments last night. Jed's goal, the cross that turned into a shot. I mean, it's just one of those wonderful moments for the season. And then obviously the late winner from Jake Cooper, which was absolutely buried. I mean, it was one of those.
And let's not forget the chance from Mason Bennett that he missed as well, which could have sort of added to a goal tally. So that was another good attack. But
that was very bad luck. Yeah, very bad luck on Mason there, because I think that he had no time to really react, other than just to get a block on it and see where it went from the impact. I mean, some really standout moments. It was a really enjoyable game. And it was really, really refreshing after Saturday, which was a bit toxic, I must say. Whether that's right or wrong, there's another debate. But on to Saturday, Michael, and we do have a big game against Stoke. And such is the nature of football, that we've got to reproduce the same levels that we saw last night at home to Stoke. And hopefully, just maybe a similar style, I think would be. If we see the same effort, similar style against Stoke, then I think that would earn the approval of the Den crowd. Because I think if you're not seeing 100% effort, which we didn't last week, then that's when you'll really get problems from a Millwall crowd, I think.
Yeah, and it makes it a little bit more difficult because I believe isn't Afobe out because he's on loan from Stoke, isn't he?
I suppose he will be, wouldn't he? Yeah, although he
Yeah.
didn't start last night, so I guess that will mean a Bradshaw start. I guess maybe Bennett. I don't know.
Maybe John Daddy.
John Daddy. Oh dear.
That's how desperate we are. No, but no, you're right. But hopefully, like we said, we've just come off the back of 3 points away against a team who probably are in a slightly false position, with their resources and their fan base.
Well, we're 3 points
like
behind Stoke, Saturday's opponents. Now we are quite literally 3 points off of the 6th spot, the fabled 6th, playoff spot. So, I suppose Gary Rowett would point to the statistics, the league table. The bottom line result is always how he's going to be judged. And I suppose football management, as he'll know by now in his career, is never a fairly based judged game, is it? No, his 360-degree annual review is conducted each week in front of the West Lower, but we're actually, after that win last night, that's a very decent position to find ourselves in. We lurch from the lows to the highs at Millwall, Michael, don't we?
Yeah, and it goes back to what we said at the beginning. Only at Millwall can you be in 10th position, 3 points off the playoffs, 1 defeat in 10, and pissed off. Only at Millwall. We go.
That's Zampa's Road Syndrome, that's called. I want to say thank you to Michael for hanging around whilst we got this recording going today. Big thank you, mate. And we will be back at the weekend after the Stoke City at home to see what new hell or what new ecstasies await us at 5 p.m. Sadly. Thank you, Michael.
No problem. Arrivederci Millwall.
Achtung, Millwall.
Extra bonus section of today's episode. I wasn't expecting him to be here, but he is here, ladies and gentlemen. It is Mr. Harry Warren. Welcome, H.
Thanks for having me. Sorry I've slept in.
You're working nights, mate. I didn't realise earlier on. Harry's working nights, listeners, and he's just literally got up, haven't you? It's not long. It's 4 o'clock as we record this. So, welcome to the show, Harry. You saw that. What was in the end? I thought an excellent away win last night. How did you see last night's performance, mate?
They're 2 different questions, aren't they? The result and the performance.
Yeah.
I thought the goal, Jake Cooper's goal, magnificent to win it, but the questions regarding our manager still stand, in my opinion, and that seems ridiculous to say after winning at a hard place to go, but if you actually take the circumstances of the game into consideration, I think we learned what we already knew was kind of reaffirmed last night.
This follows on the recording we did with Michael earlier on, listeners. So I'm speaking to Harry separately. I think I agree. I mean, the main difference that I picked out, H, from Saturday, to some extent, I don't know if you would agree with this, but to some extent, tactics are fine and dandy, and you can debate one system over another, and the merits of 4-4-2 versus 2-3-5, 5-3-2, or whatever you want, 5-2-3 as we've got it. But unless the players bring 100% to the party, it doesn't matter to some level, within reason, what your formation is, because most formations will work after a fashion if everyone's committed to it. And last Saturday, I'm talking about, was a debacle because I didn't see enough commitment from the team that took the field to justify whatever you think of Gary Rowett's tactics. Last night, the main difference for me was we brought our A game last night. We committed to it, and there were moments where it was a bit harem-scarum in the second half because I think Sheffield United played well with 10 men, but the commitment and the fire in the belly and everything that you look for in a Millwall team was there last night, where it wasn't there Saturday. Do you agree with it?
I somewhat agree. I also think that certain games suit us more. The way they play an expensive style of football, which allows us to be our counter-attacking, punching self. The early goal by Wallace. I mean, the one that they had called offside, I was watching it on the red button on Sky, so I obviously had no replays, but the one that was offside for Wallace that he scored before they ruled it out for offside, and then obviously Wallace then scoring the goal that counted
Later on,
early.
yeah.
You know, that makes big difference to sort of games. Goals change games. It allowed us to sort of steady the ship, sat off. But when they made their change 37 minutes or 35 minutes into the first half, and suddenly they started to look like, you know, a Sheffield United side that were recently in the Premier League and played good football, and they've got players there that are all, when they went up, they played a lovely style that I thought was kind of the blueprint rather, getting out of this division. And I still don't see any difference from that. I thought they were good at times last night. To be honest, even with 10 men, they were still outplaying us.
Well, I made this point with Michael. The best teams, and we've seen when we've played the better sides and cups or whatever, if they go down to 10 for some reason, they still look good. And I thought Sheffield United did a good job of playing with 10 last night. And it was a bit touch and go. I mean, we've got to be honest, because although we're celebrating a good win on the road, the game was in the balance, Harry, till fairly late. And I mean, that we were getting chances, they were getting chances, and
it's like a basketball match, wasn't it? It's not technically what you want in a football game when you're going end to end.
I enjoyed watching
it's great. It's great to watch it. Absolutely great. I mean, I'd rather not being funny or anything. I know we've been moaning about boring Gary, but I mean, if boring Gary does that all the time, I won't mind. Even if we get beat sometimes, you know, at least it's exciting and it's entertaining. I mean, we had chances we missed. I think Ojo was dreadful. I don't.
You didn't like him last night, Harry, did you? I like him as a player, but you were saying on the group chat you didn't like him last night.
Oh, I thought he was dog shit. I won't beat around the bush. I thought he had an absolute mare last night. I don't understand how he lasted as long as he did. I think that the substitutions Gary Rowett ended up making very late on, but you've got to give him credit when they work. They did work. I'm not sure if that's by hook or by crook. I mean, even a stop clock is right twice a day, but you know, you got to give him credit. But neither one of those substitutions scored the goal. It was a goal by Jake Cooper. I mean, I don't know what he was doing there. I don't know what got into Jake Cooper's head. I mean, I've never seen him hit a ball like that. I don't know if you've ever seen him hit a ball like that. And it just spectacular.
He went through a phase when Gary Rowett first came to us of getting forwards, doing the unexpected. I think probably that's the best way we can put it. It was in places he wouldn't expect to normally be as a centre back. And I thought he was trying to get back to that last night. I don't know if any of the players listen to our show. I like to think they all do, and they all weigh it all up, because I think we've been saying about the early period Gary Rowett, when Jake and the like would get forward, even Sean Hutchinson would get forwards and create weird situations that are totally unexpected. And I think that was in that mould last night. That strike from the edge of the D was put away brilliantly. I mean, you know, you can't expect it every week of him, but it was plumb of a plum, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, he shifted that from the left-hand side and go all the way back right. I mean, if Bradshaw hits that or Jed hits that, you know, you're probably giving it even more credit. You know what I mean? It's one of those that you talk about. But yeah, I don't know. I just thought last night they managed the game well in situations. We've got to mention Bart, because I thought Bart was fantastic last night as well, as usual. I thought the penalty by Malone, Scott Malone looked a little bit off the pace, but he's coming back from injury, obviously. And Scott Malone will be fine, but I didn't think he had a great game. But yeah, all in all, you know, it sounds sort of, I don't know, sort of sour grapes for me to be turning around and saying I wasn't impressed. I was impressed that we won. I think there were still things that can be improved on. And again, we know we are quite good away from home. He is good away from home.
This is solving the Den problem. And it's strange for it to be a problem, but it is a problem because our home form has been at best patchy. And I think the question marks for Gary, I mean, we will point at the league table, which I think we sit in 10th position. I was looking earlier on, I think it's 10th position.
Nosebleed.
3 points off the playoffs.
I don't know if I think that's damning with faint praise. I think the league's quite bad. That's what that's telling me. The league is shit.
It is what it is. I mean, you can only turn out in the league that you're in.
How many wins we won? How many games we won this season?
We've
3.
now won 4.
Four.
1-4, play 13, 1-4, drawn 6, obviously, and lost 3. Which would include a debacle on Saturday. I mean, there was an unbeaten run prior going into. I was saying to Michael how when I was clicking on the iFollow link last night, 'cause I can't bear that red button malarkey. But one of the paragraphs I was just looking at was how we prior to Saturday, we'd gone 7, I think, unbeaten in the league, which is a fact. You know, you can talk about the performance.
2 wins, 5 draws.
As you know, Harry, I mean, football, you're judged on the bottom line, and that's the result at the end of the day. What do you bring in? And, you know, Gary Rowett, the case for the defence, would point at the league table and say 10th position, wherever we finish in the season. But to be in 10th position is a historically good performance by Millwall Football Club standards. So that's the conundrum of football management, isn't it?
I agree. I think the fact is, though, that 10th, although not historically a Millwall finishing position, has become what is expected. You've got to understand that football fans always want progress, and to finish, where was it, 8th the first season, then the relegation battle with Harris, then where do we finish under Rowett the next season? 9th, 10th, something like that. Then the last 2 seasons, the COVID affected seasons, have been steps backwards. And again, somewhat this doesn't really feel until probably last night. I didn't feel like I'd got there was no Twitter overstatement. There was no Millwall-ness mad run beginning. No. And I don't think you're going to get that with Gary Rowett. I don't think he instills me anyway with mad Millwall, fuck it, book the Wembley tickets, book the coach tickets, we're going to Wembley kind of thing. I don't think, and I still don't think we'll make the playoffs, regardless being.
I mean, who knows? I mean, the things with statistics. I mean, I've just quoted those 10th position, blah blah blah. That does disregard some pretty poor performances, although the results, the draws, you can see a draw one 2 ways, but the Den doesn't erupt like it did on Saturday. I know you weren't there, H, but anyone that's listened to the previous show will hear it. It really doesn't erupt like that without due cause. And, in fact, I think in recent years, and I include Holloway and I include, to some extent, Lomas and a long while ago, Spackman, but the Den crowd is actually disproportionately patient. It wants to be loyal. It wants to back the team. And to get to that point, the cliche, the stereotyped image of a Millwall fan is someone that, has way higher expectations. But you don't get to Saturday's point without some calls. And I think that to ignore those calls is not it's not putting a fair picture out there. So there's a problem still to be solved.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, I'd ask listeners to actually go back and look, not necessarily of this season or even this season, because there'll be some that would have missed the Barnsley game, but go back and look at the last time you saw Millwall win in person, not on iFollow or not via social media or whatever, or watching it on your phone or a dodgy stream, but actually either at the Den or an away ground somewhere. If you actually go back, I haven't seen them win in person this season. I haven't seen them win in person for a long, long time. And that's not, what have I done? I've missed 2 home games this season. And I didn't really go in the Carling Cup due to work commitments. And I was at 2 weddings, just how life is at the moment of catching up with social engagements. And maybe some listeners are the same, but I can't remember watching Millwall, like the QPR game start of the season, went QPR away, should have won that game, never ever should not win that game. There's moments in seasons, it reminds me slightly of the, if this does go well, I mean, I can accept not winning at the Den. I can, as long as the football was entertaining, but the football is boring and bad, and the results are bad. You can accept good football and bad results are a lot easier to swallow. And some people will go, well, they're the same side of us,
the coin,
of the coin. But for me, primarily the Den is there to entertain me. It is to be the event. It is there to have its moment, and it hasn't been the Den for quite some time.
So that's a good point. I mean, I said to Michael on the show earlier on, what was really refreshing for me last night was I actually enjoyed watching. That was a game of football. It was you can pick up, it's championship level football. It's not, the contrast was with, on the other channels you've got European Champions League football, so you can't compare quality, but you can compare effort and sheer entertainment value. And I enjoyed that last night, and it helps to win it with a late strike by an unlikely player, Jake Cooper. But you have to. The reason that you follow football primarily, in my opinion, is a weird combination of loyalty and a desire to be uplifted in some way. And last night I enjoyed watching as a game of football, which that is refreshing, and that's what I want to. I don't know if Gary Rowett listens to our show. He might do, mightn't he? But that's the kind of secret ingredient that I want him to grab onto, because I know he's judged on results, and the bottom line league table position. But you've got to send your punters home wanting more, and that's not what's been happening for some time.
No, he is very much. I'd describe him as the old school Tesco value sort of burger. It is a burger, but it ain't really a burger. You know what I mean? It's McDonald's / Burger King. It is not. But that's how it's been. It's and the thing is that football fans now in this generation, for all the bollocks that FIFA come out with, and UEFA and all the others in the Premier League, especially for the kids, you look at the it's not cheap to go to Millwall. Let's get it right.
It isn't. Actually. No.
And this is only going to increase. You've got ULEZ coming and all these other additional factors that people have to factor in. There's cuts to universal credit and all sorts, and it will be a hard winter. And people will make their decisions based upon what they feel is value for money. And the Den is the bread and butter. The Den has to be an entertaining place to go and watch your football. Otherwise, people will not go and watch and spend their money.
It's funny, total tangent. I'm going to go off on there, dear listeners, but I was watching yesterday. There was a video on YouTube, and it popped up, and they have algorithms that generate things that might interest you. And it was like a ground review. It was done by two. They're okay guys, but they're a bit. I think they were from East Anglia, so they're East Anglian nerdy types.
Yes, I know the type well.
And they came down. They're doing like a review of the '92, but as grounds to visit, not a club based thing. It's just what's it like to go to the Emirates Stadium or West Ham or now the one they did was Millwall, and they deliberately chosen Millwall versus Cambridge in the EFL Cup because I think they were a bit scared of the reputation of coming to the Den on a match day, but they were weighing up things like value for money, atmosphere, and all the rest of it. And as I say, these were okay guys. You can take the piss out of what they're doing. But one of the things they actually said and they commented on was the home ticket normally costing £29, and I said, "Wow, that seems like a lot compared with." I don't know what other venues they've done, but they just commented that seemed like a lot of money for the level of football that they're watching, which comes back to your point. And I've gone a long way to get to it because yes, you do in the centre of one of the great cities of the world with plenty of other things to do on a Saturday afternoon. You've got to weigh up how buzzed do you feel when you leave the ground afterwards. And that's what was missing. That's what was missing Saturday. And it's been missing for a few fixtures. Didn't have it. I mean, it was a good game last night, so I can't complain at last night's show. But that's got to be captured somehow.
I mean, I'll make no bones about it. I've slagged the club this season in our group chats for being more style over substance on Twitter and other social media platforms regarding, very good to get involved in these things, but a lot of talk, not a lot of action would be the way that I count the club. And the benefits from that survey last season, what was it? Most of our support's over the age of 25 or whatever.
Yeah. Most of our listeners are blokes aged 35 plus.
Yeah. All these statistics, I know I have these statistics, and it makes me not angry. That's the wrong word. It makes me concerned that the club don't take these ideas seriously. There are there are games in this division that we are not going to sell out. There is absolutely no way. I wouldn't pick Cardiff on a Saturday afternoon to invite the kids down. But as
Or
you
maybe
just
even Luton. Bring
yeah, or
them
even
up.
Luton. But I mean, there are clubs that are not going to be games. You've got all that space underneath the away ground. Flip it round, put the away fans down the bottom for the 10 that they're going to bring. And invite the kids. He said it's a poor area. Invite the kids. Make them want to come to our club. Throw them throw them last season's shirt rather than throwing it in the bargain bin for a £5. Most Millwall fans will pay the 29 quid, but it's so short-sighted to think that is sustainable going forward with bad football at the Den. You do it out of a sense of misguided loyalty, because that's all football is. It's going back to the ex that hurt you every Saturday and pretending that they haven't. That is football in a nutshell, isn't it? And we all hope that we're going to get our happily ever after, which in my
there's
head
an image to leave
is promotion to the Premier League. Otherwise, what are we? I know most Millwall fans, you've had your happily ever after moment, but for people of my age, I mean, what am I? 31. So I was born in the season that we got relegated from the old First Division.
Yeah.
So anyone who's my age and younger has never seen us hit dizzying heights, and
it's like
we are now you. We are now you. When you thought it would never happen, we are now you. So please spend some money and make it happen.
The myths and legends of King Arthur's Round Table when Millwall got promoted to Division 1. Harry, I'm gonna leave it there, mate, because I'm on a bit of a time. I'm actually going out tonight, listeners. I'm going to see Ed Byrne at Blackheath tonight, so I want to get this out before I couldn't get it edited before I go out. It's about 6ish, so I'm going to call it quits there with H. But a lot of what you've said, Harry, is really interesting, and I've actually been weighing up a podcast on modern football, how it is now, and where our dear little old-fashioned club stuck in 1975 might fit into it, because I think it's actually a big question. Everything you've touched on about entertainment and other stuff like that is really, really important, and yet I don't know that any of us think deeply enough about it. So anyway, I'm going to say thank you to Harry for rousing himself. I can't wish you a good evening because you're going to work tonight, H. So try and do your best, and hopefully you can have a listen back to the show when you're on the.
I will do. I will quickly plug a. I know that you're a bit of a bar. I've seen you at a baseball ground. You have a photo.
I love the game. Yeah.
There is a podcast called The Run, which talks about the Cubs' 107-year curse of never winning a World Series, and it's done by Major League Baseball, and it's really good from the background of what it's like to be a club that underachieves, and it slightly touches on stuff of us. The fact that people have lived their entire life, 107 years, they hadn't got to a World Series since 1945, and there was people at 71 years and had never been there, and you've got the pictures of people crying in the stands, and they won it with a pinch play, and to get to the World Series, not even to win it, and it's just very, very good.
The Run, so it's based around the Chicago Cubs. It's called The Run, and it's MLB podcast.
Yeah, just go on. Just search The Run on iTunes. It's there. There we go.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Harry. I will listen to that, mate. So I'm gonna love you all, listeners. Thank you, Harry. Thank you for tuning into the show. I'm gonna try and get it edited and knocked out in a hurry. So Arrivederci Millwall. Thanks, Harry.
No problem.
Thank you for listening to Achtung Millwall. If you enjoyed the show, please head over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a cheeky little review. Arrivederci Millwall. Till next time.
Who do you want to watch?